I'm Graham Stone, joined by Bitcoin.com news gigabrain, Mr. David Sencil. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How you doing on this Monday morning?
Doing good, doing good. Except for Bitcoin is not doing so great. So let's get into it. Over the weekend, Bitcoin had another bleeding out, dropping as low as $68,000. It has recovered to some extent this morning here in Asia. So, with investors seemingly having chosen gold as the geopolitical hedge trade, and then on top of that, you've got quantum FUD on Bitcoin working its way through TradFi, plus lingering questions about the 4-year cycle and whether that's still in play. Bitcoin does continue to bleed. So just focusing a little bit on the quantum FUD thing, I think the biggest part of this is that whether it's true or not, whether uh, Bitcoin is actually quantum computing is actually a threat to Bitcoin, whether that's true or not. The reality is that some market participants, think it is a risk. Specifically, the one that's been going around here over the last week is Christopher Wood of Jeffrey, who is the global head of equity strategy at Jeffries, a large investment platform or house. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they manage a lot of money. And he said that they dropped their 10% Bitcoin allocation from their influential fear and greed model portfolio, pointing to accelerating quantum computing risks that could threaten Bitcoin's cryptography and erode its long term appeal as a store of value. So he has redirected that capital into physical gold at 5% and gold mining equities at the other 5%. So that's one thing that's draining Bitcoin, causing it to continue to bleed. Beyond that, we have sort of a shifting of the Bitcoin holder base. Basically, the new whales in the Bitcoin realm are primarily institutions. They, surprise, surprise, are not ideologues like the original cohort of Bitcoin whales. They're finance people. So, unlike the old guard, which also, okay, so they they don't think about it Bitcoin as ideologically, but beyond that, they also just have a higher cost basis. So, like older Bitcoiners, the cost basis may be around $40,000 on average. This new investment grade whale cohort, it's closer to $100,000, and so the recent price action has them panicking. Besides that, David, there's a few other things going on here, but all of this is pointing towards, yeah, Bitcoin not really catching a bid here. A lot of panic actually amongst the Bitcoin community.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we should get to what I think is probably the main cause, at least the main direct cause in the short term. The the move it the financial moves in Japan with respect to government bonds. Um, the yen experienced its biggest like 1 day surge in nearly 6 months. If you look at the chart, it's pretty impressive actually to see it go from like what 158, close to 159, all the way down to 155 ish. Um, Now, before we get into what directly caused this move, let's step back to the beginning of last week, um, and people will probably already know this, but there was a sharp sell-off in Japanese government bonds, um, because the Six Sigma bond yield increase that was happening in Japan. This spilled over to the rest of the world. Japan's bond market is financially significant to the globe. So U.S. Treasury yields spiked, and pretty much every other bond market, I think, spiked. Equities sold off, Bitcoin sold off, gold went up as expected. Um, this move was addressed by like uh, Treasury Secretary Besant. who said very explicitly, I'm on the phone with my counterparts in Japan, and I think they should address this. And so the the part of that this addressment came on Friday, last Friday, and this is kind of the direct cause for the yen strengthening and probably Bitcoin having a precipitous drop. Okay, so what happened last Friday? In response to all this turmoil in Japan, uh, the the Federal Reserve Bank of New York conducted a rate check on the U.S. dollar Japanese yen exchange rate, and this kind of sparked fears that the BOJ and the Fed were were preparing for a possible yen intervention. All right, let's start with what is a rate check. A
This is
rate check,
hilarious, by the way.
yes,
What is a rate check? Because obviously, anyone could just Google what the rate is, but no, that's not how it works in TradFi.
yeah. I mean, this is not this is like kind of the bread and butter of central banking, which is first you try to scare or jawbone the market into doing what you want without actually having to do anything, right? So that's kind of the TLDR is. Um, you have important people get out there and say we're going to do something if you guys don't behave, and then they the market should hopefully do what they want them to do, and if they don't, then they have kind of just cause, I guess, to
And so
do.
this rate check has emerged as sort of the thing that people recognize as a signal that the central banks are threatening to do something.
Yes. So basically, what all a rate check is the central bank officials, they call major commercial banks dealing, with these currencies, and they ask they ask for what the current uh, exchange rate for a specific currency pair is. In this case, USD JPY. Like Graham said, it sounds ludicrous, but the important thing is what the signaling is, right? So the signaling is basically they are they're warning the market, they're warning traders. We are watching this specific pair very closely, and we are not happy. We're preparing to do something about it, whether that's buying a currency to or buying or selling a currency in that pair. Um, and the desired result is kind of twofold. First, it's a warning shot, and hopefully traders and banks or whomever get the message, and the kind of the problem with what they see gets corrected. In this case, the yen strengthening is what they wanted to see. The yen strengthening, the dollar weakening. This is what they wanted. Now, if this is short-lived, if the markets call their bluff, if you will, then they actually have to go out and do something, which is, in this case, the Fed would start selling dollars to buy yen, right? And so um, the the uh, the yen would strengthen further, and the dollar would weaken. And apparently, this would be it gets a little complicated depending on the different accounts I follow, but the desired outcome would be liquidity increases and risk assets benefit from this situation. Now, apparently, the devil's in the details, and you get into these things of like, does the BOJ sanitize different parts of this? Do they leave it unsanitized? I got a little lost, to be honest, in this, and I was going down that rabbit hole when right before we were going live, so I don't really want to say anything on that. But this is this is what happened on Friday, and then over the weekend. If you look at the USD JPY pair, you can see just fall very very fast, and you saw Bitcoin react to this as well. There are other articles on this and how the how Bitcoin in particular is very sensitive to these kinds of moves, and it's, as we've said many times, Bitcoin is kind of the most sensitive asset to liquidity, and um, these FX moves tied with bonds and stuff we're basically talking about like global liquidity, and so it makes sense that why Bitcoin would be the most sensitive to this, to these moves.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. The whole yen issue. It's hard to know what's going to happen there. Um, I think you've summarized it pretty well, David.
Yeah. There's really good stuff on this. Like I think Brent Johnson has a lot of good stuff on this, and a bunch of people do. But basically, I think we've talked about this before. Japan is between a rock and a hard place. Like truly, this is
Yeah,
it's
it's either protect the currency, protect the JPY, or save the bond market. I guess
yeah, and it's
one
not
or
just
the other.
save the bond market. If you so inflation is tied into this, right? So
Mm,
like if they protect the bond market, the yen rises, killing savers. But also, if they protect the yen, then I think the bonds suffer, and I think inflation runs. I think that's the dynamic there. So again, which do you choose? Pick your poison, right?
yeah,
Um,
and if they do protect the yen, probably no. If the bond market continues to if yield continues to get introduced into the bond market, then I think, and I guess that would, anyway, I think what people are saying is what would happen there is probably a sell off of US equities.
Right. Well, so again, I think the devil's in the details because this is where it gets confusing to me. And I've followed all these accounts on long threads of them going back and forth between each other and in terms of what the actual mechanics are. So I
Yeah.
would just preface this with like people who are much more informed than you or I, they also disagree on what would happen,
Yeah.
right? Like they also disagree,
Yeah,
like, no, this
exactly.
would,
There's a lot of permutations, and
yeah.
it really like it. I think the level of interventionism, and the level like the fact that the United States and Japan are allies, and there's geopolitical implications. I think those significantly complicate things as well.
Yeah, and the Japanese bond market, right? Like so, for the past what 30 years, basically, um, Japanese investors have sought yield outside of Japan because it's been
Yes.
so low, and so the fact that this is changing, whether it's good or bad, that we can set that aside. The fact that this situation is changing so rapidly, i.e., bonds are starting to yield much more in such a short amount of time. I think it's like 18 months ago, the 30 or 40-year bond was like 0.5%, and now it's like
Effectively
4%.
zero. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I
Things
mean,
have
you're getting
changed
just
very quickly.
ridiculous moves that you just don't see in sovereign bonds
Yeah.
usually. So, something to
So
be aware of, definitely.
definitely something to be aware of. Now, I think rather than us pontificating on what we think might happen, the markets might be a better signal. So let's get into that, right? Because prediction markets right now, what are they saying about Bitcoin? So that's the question everyone wants to know. What happens next, right? Does Bitcoin catch up to gold, or does it continue to bleed? Maybe perhaps down as low as the 200-week simple moving average, which is I think between $60,000 and $70,000, and that price point has historically shown support in Bitcoin bear markets. Well, on Polymarket, there's one market that's quite interesting. It's so just bring this up here. Yeah, Bitcoin's next move: pump to 100K or dump to 69K. This is one of the markets on Polymarket. Currently, it's favoring 100K before 69K. The market participants here 67.5% odds that Bitcoin will hit 100K before it hits 69K. So in the medium term, the market is taking the view that Bitcoin has higher probability on the upside. However, on the short term, it's basically a coin flip right now. Like, for example, on this Kalshi market, what will the Bitcoin price be by the end of the week, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern? It's 62% chance that it'll be above $86,750. basically a coin flip right now as to whether it'll be higher or lower than where it is right now. So anyway, that's typical, I guess. The market doesn't know what's going on too much in the short term. Medium term,
Yeah.
they're giving a higher probability to upside than downside.
I think this is a good time to talk about like the how much macro geopolitical forces are having an effect on the market, specifically um, tariffs. I mean, last year, Graham, we talked about being bored of talking about stable coins. Well, tariffs seem to be, I think, something that we're going to be spending a lot of time on, at least in the first half of the year, talking about. Anyway, there's a new wrinkle here, which could have huge effects in the short term. Um, Trump this week threatened to hit Canada with 100% tariffs. Um, this would be, I think, a big deal in the short term, and is something to be aware about for anybody who's trading crypto on a short time frame, because this could hit any time, right? Like, you just don't know when these things can be slammed home, and you'd have to deal with it. Um, Little dramatic backstory to this: Trump was asked about a deal that Canada is in the process of making with China. Um, and he said on January 16th, that's okay. That's what he should be doing. I mean, it's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. He's talking about Carney making a deal with China. So at the beginning, yeah, good. What's good for Canada, Canada should do what's good for them. And now he said, China will eat Canada alive, destroying their businesses and social fabric and general way of life. Um, I actually agree with the latter, but that's just one man's opinion. So flip flopped, some would say, um, and threatening huge tariffs on that. Again, if this were to happen, the poly market would it just blow up, because I think it would have an immediate effect. 100% tariffs on Canada, at least in the
Well,
short
the
term.
threat of tariffs does have an immediate effect. Like that's what we've seen over the last year. You threaten tariffs, it tanks the markets. What actually happens has a much longer, more delayed effect.
Well, yeah, that's true. But in the cases of, remember last year, a couple times where America did just like institute huge tariffs on China. Do you remember those headlines? The tariffs are now 144%,
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, and
yeah,
that actually came down and was released. Every time that happened, it dinged the market, and
yeah.
so I think it mattered less. But we really haven't had this kind of tariff escalation for some time now. So I imagine that desensitivity to it has abated. And if America actually did go through with like officially saying tariffs on Canadian goods are 100%, I imagine it would have a pretty, at least in the short term, a pretty big effect. Um, Also, can I
Yeah.
just go on a slight rant now?
Well,
Like, this is
yeah,
ridiculous. This is ridiculous. America is like Canada's number one trading partner. We buy more things from Canada than anyone else in the world. China buys like 4% of Canadian goods. China is a mass net exporter. This is a terrible deal for Canada. What are they thinking? This is insanity to me. I just think it's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, regardless of whether it's a good deal or not for Canada, I think the more important thing here is the fact that this whole issue has come up. The fact that Canada whatever made some deal with China, and then now Trump's angry about that because of this whole like realignment of, are you with us or are you against us? And to me, that whole that whole issue is the real reason why we're seeing, like, for example, the the flight to precious metals, right? It all starts from, like, I mean, that the U.S. seizing Russia's assets and the sort of the breakdown of the United States as a like Pax Americana, that whole thing is breaking down. This is just further evidence. Canada fighting with its like closest ally, like they literally share the world's longest land border in the world. Uh, they're you can't distinguish between Canadians and Americans. Which one of us is Canadian? Which one of us is American, David? No one knows.
Oh, the real ones know. The real ones know what it's a boot.
Yeah. So, so the whole point though is just that the fact that like there's this tantrum is happening in public is just further evidence of like the breakdown of the current order, and that's what is to me has the implications for Bitcoin and other Bitcoin like assets, maybe gold, whatever, right?
Well, I mean, I think I would not put Bitcoin with gold at all right now. I feel like it's been proven over the past year, and certainly January, that when when you're worried about risk, there's clearly one asset you go to, and it's not Bitcoin, not even close. So that's at least in the short term, right? Medium
Yeah.
term, whatever, fine. But again, I was just saying, like, with this tariff stuff, because it could happen anytime, right? That's the thing, is like, how can you predict if and when
Yeah.
the tariff news slams down? It just makes, I feel like, trading on that in the short term really risky. I think you and I agree on the mid to long term, but I don't know. I would not mess with this on a short time frame.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next story.
Are we doing
While
Ethereum now, or
Yeah, Ethereum. So while Bitcoin quantum FUD continues to accelerate, Ethereum seems to be taking things more seriously, or at least that's the narrative. David, take us through this. Oh, you're muted, David.
okay? Yeah, sorry. I saw this news over the weekend, and it made me quite happy. Right. So let me just go through it, and I'll I'll be happy after that. So on
As an
Friday, just
Ethereum bag holder.
no, I actually have zero Ethereum right now. I'm a you know, I'm one of those what do they call them? Crypto enthusiasts, crypto maxis. I don't know. But
You
I
want crypto to fulfill its use case.
yes, and I think what's good for Ethereum is good for the ecosystem. I really truly believe that. Anyway, so on Friday, Justin Drake, a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation and kind of a figurehead, I think right now, even though his official role is just researcher. In any case, Justin Drake announced the formation of a dedicated security unit aimed at protecting the network from quantum computing. Um, this is going to be led by Thomas. I don't know how to say this name. Koretiger. Koretiger. He's getting an engineering support focused on learn lean VM, a cryptographic framework designed to facilitate the network's transition to post quantum standards. So they are fighting the vulnerability of the elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. The great acronym is ECDSA. It's a terrible acronym, which currently secures the majority of blockchain wallets. The Ethereum Foundation has committed over 2 million to the cause, split between two main buckets. One is a $1 million prize to harden the Poseidon hash function, and the other is another $1 million to support general post quantum cryptography, specifically hash based systems and zero knowledge Starks. So the timeline and the level of urgency, I would say, is medium. Long term, Vitalik Buterin has estimated a 20% probability that quantum computers could break modern cryptography by 2030. So make of that what you will. Um, but Justin Drake emphasized that you need to start preparing now, right, before this attack is remotely technically feasible, which is what I've been saying about Bitcoin. Any case, why does this matter? I would step back and say it doesn't. If you're a a quantum computing skeptic, like my co-host Graham Stone, or a quantum computing, what do you say, Chicken Little, like Nick Carter, um, the important takeaway is that I think Ethereum is making the right moves, and they're actually
Well,
putting money to this, and they're looking forward for medium to long term, and they're doing things. They're doing
yeah,
things. That's
optics. It's
awesome.
all about optics. So Ethereum finally is putting some emphasis on optics. They've got some small amount of money that's going towards this, but more importantly, they're talking about it, right? And so they're finally getting ahead of the PR game. Maybe Bitcoin could learn a thing or two there. Well, the Bitcoin, because actually the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin Core, is talking about quantum. I think Willy Woo just published an interesting analysis of the mentions of the quantum threat in the Bitcoin, Bitcoin Core mailing groups. It's up a lot. There, it's a major topic of conversation, right? But Bitcoin doesn't have a like the Ethereum Foundation doesn't have a mouthpiece that can uh, put out press releases. Yes, we are dealing with the quantum threat. So it relies on the decentralized community to do that. And yeah, Ethereum finally using the Ethereum Foundation for something useful here, which is to get ahead of the narrative.
Is that what
That's
you
how I
think?
cynically see it.
Is that what you think? Is that what you think the Ethereum Foundation announcement should sound like? The AI voice that they're. Yes, we are taking this very seriously, and we're devoting $2 million. I mean, yeah, the number seems a
I
little
guess it
small.
should be more of, I don't know, how would you picture what a milady voice sounds
No,
like?
no, no. I
Maybe
would I
that's
would
what it
make it
should
like some
be.
autistic Vitalik, like, yeah, we're putting money to it's very serious, and we're gonna do it because something like that. Um,
Okay.
anyway, I think though that it's not just optics. Like, as you know, as a manager, getting organizations lined up in leadership roles and everything kind of laid out, that goes a long way to moving in the right direction. And put the money aside, the fact that they've assigned this to specific people, and they've got kind of the command structure for it laid out and
Yeah.
publicized. That's
And yeah, that's
actually real
cool.
progress.
It's real
That's cool.
progress. And yeah, they did all that and they remembered to talk about it. So
Exactly. Again, I personally think that Ethereum is now finally making the right moves. I said that at the end of last year. I've said it a couple times before, maybe on Token Narratives and on this. And to me, this is just another example of them showing that they're doing the right things. Finally, after years of not doing the right things. So happy to see.
okay. All right, let's get back to our last story of the week. So, David, there was on X over the weekend. There was a post going around from a publication called New Scientific, and it was like a podcast interview between like an expert, a supposed Bitcoin expert, like a scientist, right? New Scientific. It's ostensibly scientific publication, and yeah, they were. She was just spewing all the old tired tropes about how Bitcoin is bad for the environment, it's bad for the grid, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, it's all just used for dark web stuff.
It's burning the ocean. It's boiling the
Yeah.
oceans, Graham.
So turns out, though, people in the Bitcoin community have long pointed out that actually Bitcoin is good for the grid. It doesn't it waste electricity. It actually supports the grid. And here we have a perfect example. So there's this huge, like historic cold front sweeping across the U.S. To the point where I think Trump even had to say something about it. Anyway, it doesn't seem that cold to me, right? Being from Canada, but so apparently it's kind of cold, and yeah. So when the temperatures drop like this in places like Texas, people have to turn on the heating properly. Like they have massive houses and not that good insulation, and that puts a
Jesus.
huge
Okay. Good
that,
lord.
that puts a huge strain on the grid, right? Like the grid suddenly has to pump out all this electricity, and normally it doesn't have to do that, right? Thankfully, Bitcoin miners have all like migrated to Texas and you are using large amounts of grid capacity when um, when it doesn't need to max out at these moments like this when you got these cold snap or heat waves, and they can just unlike any other utilizer of a large consumer of electricity, they can just turn off the Bitcoin miners at the flick of a switch, which they did. And for example, Foundry USA's hash rate dropped by roughly 60%, even to the point where Bitcoin's block times slowed by 2 minutes per block. Normally it's 10 minutes. I think it went up to 12 minutes for a short period of time until the like difficulty adjustment. I'm not sure if that's still happening right now. This is a very new story, but anyway, point is they turned off their drain on the grid, and it enabled the grid to handle peak this peak surge in power needed, and a bunch of people didn't freeze to death. So you can thank Bitcoin for that.
Yeah. So, yeah, just setting aside your sudden derision of this deadly cold storm in the U.S. and criticisms of our capabilities to manage it. Yeah, I mean, agree with you 100%. Awesome. Really shows you the importance of things like Bitcoin that can, on like a sub-second level, adapt to power fluctuations in a grid. Incredibly important to have. And the problem with this whole thing, Bitcoin mining, as it pertains to like electrical grid health, is that it's quite complex and difficult to understand. And most people don't even know how modern electric grids run without Bitcoin, right? And so I think that's probably like a missing factor here is people just think that just just turn on another generator, like the power plant just turn some stuff on more, and that's how it works, and that's not how it works at all. And so having like massive infrastructure,
and that infrastructure is only possible because of Bitcoin mining being a profitable endeavor.
Exactly. And also, I mean, oh God, you could go into this. We're actually little alpha here. We're actually looking at maybe educating the public on this a little more, but it's profitable in its own right, but it also lowers the cost of electricity for everybody else. And how does it do that? By making the power grid more reliable. And so the cost of that reliability doesn't have to be passed on to the consumer, because Bitcoin miners are happy to pay for it because they're earning profits. You know what raises the price of electricity, Graham? Renewables. How about that? That isn't that funny? So anyway, so you get these situations like that. I'm not anti renewables, but it's just a funny outcome of how actual like electric grids work, in that the reliability is kind of paramount, and Bitcoin miners make it more reliable. So anyway, cool story to see Bitcoin's place in all this.
Yep. What was long spoken about as being a theoretical use case of Bitcoin, like it's strengthening the grid, seems to actually be happening here with this cold snap in the U.S.
This very serious cold snap, well insulated houses, best houses in the world, very efficient, better than anything Canadian could ever make in that hellscape of Toronto and whatnot. Very good houses, great houses. We'll take your wood and we make great houses out of your inferior Canadian wood. It's okay. We'll continue to do that.
All right. On that note, let's wrap it up. All right, David. Thank you as usual. See you at the end of the week for another episode of Token Narratives. We're going to be having Bill Barheit from Abra on. I'm really looking forward to that discussion.
That's gonna be fun.
Uh,
Very
yeah,
fun.
yeah. All right. Have a great week. Talk to you later.